I read these 6 books in 2022, and what I learned literally changed my life. And I believe that's the transformative power that these books can have. So, in this video, I'm going to share some valuable lessons I learned and one key valuable takeaway from each book so that you still learn something important from each of them in this video, even if you don't go out and buy the actual book. And at the end, I'm going to talk about the biggest lessons I learned from all of the books combined and which book I would skip if I were you. Book 1, Mindset by Carol Dweck. The big idea in this book is that there are 2 distinct mindsets that people operate with, either a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. Which mindset you have determines how you see the world. People with a fixed mindset essentially believe that their qualities are carved in stone. They're likely to see successful people as being talented or perhaps lucky. People with a growth mindset, on the other hand, tend to believe that your basic abilities and even advanced skills and abilities can be cultivated and built over time through hard work, effort, practice, and working with other people to develop your skill. This is one of those books that instantly opens your eyes and makes you start to see old things in a completely new way. Ultimately, this book makes it very clear that the fixed mindset tends to limit us, while a growth mindset tends to free us to grow. Believe it or not. The book goes into depth discussing many different stories across education, athletics, business, and why it's just always going to be in your best interest to adopt a growth mindset over a fixed mindset. People with a fixed mindset don't believe that they can change, right? They kind of think, well, this is who I am, I'm kind of set in stone. So people with a fixed mindset go through life trying to prove how good they are to other people, get validation for it, and not come across as being a fraud. Which sounds absolutely exhausting, but also a little bit familiar, maybe, if we're honest. In early 2022, I realized I had been stuck in a fixed mindset. I was miserable, I wanted to change my life, but I didn't know where to start, I didn't know how to do it. After all, completely changing your life is a kind of big obstacle, right? Feels very scary. And where are you even supposed to start? The answer to that question comes in the form of this book right here, Atomic Habits by James Clear. Hey, that rhymed. The key idea from this book is that habits are the building blocks of your identity. Atomic Habits focuses on how you can completely shift your sense of self as a person by repeating very small behaviors that you stack and build on over long periods of time. This book radically shifted my perspective on my own behavior, my own situation in life, because all of a sudden it was like, wait, I can break this down into small bite-sized pieces and just implement them like on a daily basis. That feels like cheating. One of my favorite lines from this book is something to the effect of every action you take is a vote for the type of person you wish to become. Habits are not about getting you something. They are about turning you into someone. And Atomic Habits teaches you how to identify the person you wish to become and then break down the step-by-step process of becoming that person through implementing new habits, which in turn massively changes just about everything about you. And a third very valuable takeaway from this book is start today. It's always tempting to put things off to a later date, to say, well, we'll start next year. I'll be more prepared then. But in truth, a year from now, you will always wish you had started today. Now, deep down, we might all know that maybe, our business success or financial success or even athleticism comes down to implementing proper habits. But what about happiness? Can we implement habits on a daily basis that make us happier? Well, Light Watkins thinks we can, and after reading this book and following the exercises, so do I. The Inner Gym is a 30-day workout plan for strengthening what the author calls the muscle of happiness. He argues that happiness is not a choice, as people love to say, but is instead an intentional muscle that you must build up over time by practice. If we think back to the previous 2 books, Mindset and Atomic Habits, the author is basically saying that by repeated practice and implementing daily happiness habits, we can grow our baseline of happiness. It's presented in the form of a workout plan, starts out very simple, builds on little thing week by week, adding another step. All in all, not gonna take you more than 15 minutes a day tops. The exercises are really simple: meditation, gratitude, practicing patience. Although many of us might know we need to do these things or we should do these things, how many of us actually do them, let alone on a daily basis? So for that sake, this book also has a section to write in your daily observations, track your progress, and kind of keep everything organized as you move through the 30-day workout plan. This book has helped me develop a habit of daily meditation, practicing gratitude, and seeing the abundance in the world around me. And abundance used to be a concept that I thought was really strange and kind of just out there. People would talk about abundance like, oh, there's so much love and energy and money flowing through the universe. And I'd be like, what? Where? Can I have some? We all know deep down, of course, that there are millions of opportunities out there, trillions of dollars, but they all seem to always be in somebody else's hands or some other person's opportunity. They don't seem to come to us so simply, do they? Maybe there's something wrong with us. However, the author of Unstoppable Self-Confidence, Andrew Leadham, would beg to differ. The core idea of this book can basically be broken down to nothing's wrong with you, you're not broken, and you don't need fixing. In fact, I think it's on the back of the book. And this message was honestly hard for me to believe the first time I picked the book up. In early 2022, I was in a pretty rough spot. I was brokenhearted following a breakup. I was working a job that was a bit of a dead end and was physically draining. And worst of all, I didn't believe that I could do anything to change. I had goals and dreams, but they seemed so far away and so unattainable that even thinking about them was depressing because I thought I would never get them, so why even think about them? I got this book hoping to find a few keys to act confident or seem confident, but I didn't think that I could be more confident by reading this book. But I got that and so much more. This book talks in depth about how to take life into your own hands, control your mind, face your fears, pursue your passions, and develop what the author calls the unstoppable confidence of the 1% of people who get what they want in life. The author shows us how most people, the 99%, get stuck in traps, get stuck in patterns of old behavior and never seem to break free of them, and how you can transcend that by achieving a new level of self-confidence, because there's nothing wrong with you. Now you might say, well, of course there's something wrong with me. There must be. A lot of people spend their lives feeling lost or aimless or scared and anxious. The world's full of broken hearts, addiction, suicide. Here I was at an all-time low, remember? Freshly single, working at a job I hated. I felt like a complete failure. I felt like I disappointed all my family and friends, everybody who'd ever believed in me. How could there be nothing wrong with me? And that is when I learned one of the most important lessons that I have ever learned in my entire life, and that is that there really is nothing wrong with me, or you. The problem is the same old patterns and beliefs we've been stuck in for years and years, and we often don't even realize it. And the solution is in this book right here, Letting Go by David Hawkins. And the key point of this book is that a lot of the time, it is not about finding new answers, it's about letting go of old problems. David Hawkins writes that there's actually nothing inherently wrong with most people. We're just carrying around all of this suppressed, repressed emotion that we don't even know we still have within us. All of these negative emotions we don't want to experience in life, they end up building up inside of us and we still carry them around whether we're aware of it or not. In Letting Go, Hawkins lays out his scale of consciousness, which essentially charts emotions on a scale of we want these to we don't want these ones so much. There is a bit of controversy surrounding the methodology of his formation of this scale, and the second half of the book gets a little new age hippie-ish. But even if you're not on board with everything he writes, the scale of emotions seems pretty intuitive, right? The goal of the book is to help the reader ascend these so-called levels of consciousness by letting go of more and more suppressed emotion that we don't even know about. As the famous psychologist Carl Jung said, what we resist persists. When we suppress or repress these emotions that we don't like, they don't just go away, they stay there, bubbling under the surface. The letting go method identified in this book is essentially identifying the emotions, acknowledging that they are there, instead of pretending that we're not afraid of something, instead of pretending we're not sad about something, instead of repressing and pushing it all down, letting it be there. And then, miraculously, it goes away. And this is definitely a strange concept at first, and it feels a little bit out there, but it worked really well for me, and I found a lot of freedom from emotions that I didn't even know I had been repressing. I found myself developing a generally lighter feeling. It's a very strange premise, but trust me, it works. How many people do we all know who are stuck in patterns of fear, grief, apathy, anger, and that seems to be the dominant emotion that runs through their life. No matter what happens, they always seem to come back to that. They're just attached to so much past emotional trauma and negative belief that they find themselves drawn to and staying in the lower half, the lower quarter even, of that scale of consciousness. Here's another way to think about how we carry this emotional trauma with us. Imagine you're out hiking one day and you're walking by some bushes and one of them smacks up against you and you get a thorn stuck in your arm. It hurts. It's not too terrible, it's just a thorn stuck in your arm. You have to hold your arm in a specific way, but as long as nothing touches it, it's not too big of a deal, right? You keep on hiking, then it starts to rain, right? So you have to put on a rain jacket. Well, the rain jacket's gonna brush up against this thorn if I put it on. That's gonna cause me a bunch of pain. I can't have that. So then you come up with a solution. Well, I'll just cut a hole in the rain jacket. No big deal, right? Now you're great. You got a rain jacket on, you got a small hole in it, your arm might get a little wet, but that's no big deal. At least nothing's gonna brush up against the thorn, right? So you go through the rest of your hike, everything's fine, you go home, you're ready to go to bed, and then you realize that when you lay down in bed, you might roll over on this thorn. So do you design a mechanism to help you cope with the thorn? Maybe hold your arm up in a certain position as you sleep? Or do you pull the fucking thorn out of your arm? The answer, of course, seems incredibly obvious. Pull the thorn out. But the way that most of us deal with emotional trauma is the first way. How many of us have known situations where, well, we're just not gonna talk about that around that person? That's that person building a special jacket to not have to brush up against their thorn because they can't pull it out. People build whole systems that surround their life so that they don't have to feel the pain of pulling that thorn out because they're afraid of what'll happen. That analogy comes from our sixth and final book, The Untethered Soul by Michael Singer. I would really recommend this book as a companion to Letting Go. I think that they complement each other. When I was reading The Untethered Soul, which I read second, I got a lot of aha moments when it made a lot of mental connections. Much like Letting Go, The Untethered Soul is about looking inward to find the source of your pains, your traumas, and realizing the past trauma and negative beliefs you might be clinging to and transcending beyond them. The most profound takeaway from this book is you are not the voice of your mind, you are the one who hears it. One of my favorite analogies in this book is to think of your mind like a roommate who just keeps talking to you day in and day out. After all, have you ever noticed that the voice in your own head seems to just endlessly want to converse? It fulfills both sides of the conversation, seemingly anything, just as long as it gets to keep on talking. But because the voice is inside of our head, we have a tendency to think it is us, and therefore we have a tendency to listen to it. Whereas if it were outside of us, not only would we not listen to it, but we just try and get the frick away from it as much as possible. This book gave me a completely new lens through which to view my own thoughts and emotions. In The Untethered Soul, Michael Singer dives into exploring consciousness, what it means to be human, and who you are in the first place. He talks about a lot of deep and complex topics, but he does so in a very approachable way. He uses a lot of silly analogies. This book shows us how we can stop letting our thoughts and emotions control us, how we can find peace and freedom within ourselves, and how we can move far, far beyond our internal comfort zone we've frequently been stuck in and do things we never would have thought possible. And that is exactly what I have done this year. Now, it's not like I'm perfect, and I definitely have not stopped growing, but I am in a far, far better place than I was at the start of the year before I read any of these books. I pushed myself to start this YouTube channel. I traveled internationally for 3 weeks by myself, which was something that scared the daylights out of me. I quit that job I hated. I moved past my heartbreak and learned so much about myself in the process. When I was before aimless and drifting, not sure what I wanted in life, now I am pursuing things that are important to me and trying to build things that I actually care about. And I believe that's the transformative power that these books can have if you let them. For me, the most valuable lessons kind of combined from all these books are as follows. 1, start now. Stop waiting for tomorrow, stop waiting for the perfect conditions. It'll never happen. It's an excuse to stay comfortable. The sooner you start taking the actions of being that version of yourself, you integrate new habits, as we talked about from Atomic Habits, those become the building blocks of your new identity. The sooner you start to take those actions, the sooner you become the new you. Secondly, it's just as important, if not more important, to unlearn the bullshit than to learn new skills. Unlearning your fear of failure and fear of what other people think of you is the most massive step you can take towards success in any area of your life. Think of it like this, right? Learning to swim is great. Learning to swim better, improving your swimming is amazing. All the swimming lessons in the world will not help you at all if you're attached to a bunch of rocks which are dragging you down. You're gonna constantly be gasping for breath no matter how good you are at swimming. Thirdly, your thoughts and your emotions are not you. Every human throughout all of history has had a lot of the same thoughts and a lot of the same emotions. You don't need to be afraid of them, you just get to experience them. And fourthly, kind of building on that third point, it's far more effective to change who you are than to try to change how you think or feel. How you think and feel will naturally follow if you shift your core identity of who you are being in a given moment. Oftentimes when you implement new habits, it feels very foreign. You feel like a fraud at first. Your feelings have not caught up with who you are being, but they do. They will. Repeated action, effort, and habit will form a new identity, and then your thoughts, your feelings, and what you have will catch up as a result to fit that new identity that you adopt for yourself. Now, I promised I would say which book I would skip if I were you, it's really tough to say because I love this book and it has been very transformative for me, but it would probably be Unstoppable Self-Confidence. I would skip this book if you were going to read all of the other ones, because all of the other ones kind of overlap enough to cover most of the content within this book. Also, to be fair, it has a few grammatical errors here or there, could probably use an editor. However, if you were to only read 1 or 2 books from this list, I would probably put this one on there precisely because it does have a very wide range of information and kind of serves as like a beginner course overviewing what many of these books go deeper into on an individual level. If it seems like any of these books resonate with something in you, seems like you'd get something out of them, I strongly suggest you buying them. They've been very transformative for me, have really changed my perspective on life and my perspective on myself. So if any of them seem interesting, I'll drop a link in the description, check them out. And if that line from The Untethered Soul stuck out to you, that you are not your thoughts, what if the voice in your mind was a roommate, seems interesting to you, check out this video right here where I go in depth on that topic, talking about how you can calibrate your mind to not have to deal or worry about that inner roommate anymore. Thanks for watching.